all things candidate development. And so I will take you along with some of my special guests through some of the things you need to know on the website, some tips on the job board, and then we'll also open it up for your questions. And so as we're going along, feel free to add them to the chat, or kind of as we are going through areas where you have questions, feel free to share them out if you feel comfortable, or put them in the chat. We'll be going through that. But I'll let my co-presenters introduce themselves and their role if you don't know who they are. So yeah, take it away, Kirby.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kirby R. Gibson. I use she, her pronouns, and I serve as the chair for the Placement Exchange Planning Committee, and excited to be with you all this evening.
Wonderful. Wanted to make sure we let that guest in the living room in. Good evening, everyone. I am Denaja Thomas. I am the director of the Placement Exchange. And so I have the pleasure of working with both Kirby and Caress in preparing for this year's event, in addition to managing a lot of the administrative components that come along with TPE. And so just a 30-second reminder, you probably saw the note letting you know that we are recording. And that's because we have a lot of interested people who have class or assistantships or other opportunities that prevent them from joining us, and want to make sure that the resource will be online for them. So excited to be with you all tonight and look forward to our conversation.
All right. So we'll go ahead and get started and dive right on into the website. And so I'll go ahead and start sharing my screen for you all. All right, and hopefully you all can see that okay. And so if you didn't know what the website is to access TPE, it's the placementexchange.org, not .com, but .org. And so you would navigate to the Placement Exchange website, and this is the screen that you all would see. So your upper left-hand corner here will give you a plethora of different menu options specific to candidates, employers, the online job board, resources, and a little bit even more about TPE, as well as you can click to at the bottom to log in or sign up. To the upper right-hand corner, you click on that little door there. Essentially, that's a way for you to log into your account. Again, if you don't have an account, you would click sign up today, and you would go ahead and put all of your demographic information in to go ahead and create an account. But we're going to go ahead and log into the account now. And so there are two different types of accounts. And so there's candidate accounts, and then there are employer accounts. And so as a candidate, you can use your candidate account to apply for jobs, connect with employers, or just register for the event. For employers, they would use TPE as a way to post any jobs that they may have year round. But then I also can post job posts that are connected to actually participating in the virtual event. So I'll go ahead and put in our credentials here. And then our password, of course. And then click log in. And we're not going to save the password right now. And so once you log in, this would bring you to what we like to call your dashboard. And so essentially here, you'll find a variety of different things. And so you'll find dashboard settings, edit profile, view profile, transaction history, and search jobs. We'll go through those different things in a bit, but just wanted to kind of give you an overview or lay of the land of this page here. Up top, you'll see that you can specify what your candidate, like your experience or your professional level is. There's definitely different takes on years of experience and what that equates to and things along those lines. And so leave that subject to your interpretation. I would say oftentimes you may hear folks say that like your 2 years as a graduate student, let's say you are a graduate student, would equate to, let's say, 1 year professional experience. But again, that's subject to interpretation. And so just wanting to be honest about that. But that you would see that information there. There isn't the option to add a photo, just acknowledging the ways in which bias can sometimes manifest within interview processes. And so wanting to honor the anonymity of our candidates and try to mitigate bias as best as possible. So you will just see like your initials here. And then the rest of the dashboard, you'll see there's a box here that says TPE Virtual Event links. And so if you've been your profile page or your dashboard for a while, there wasn't much here at the moment, but now that we're 2 weeks out from the event, you're going to start to see some things here, particularly this view and edit schedule, and we'll go there in just a second. You'll also see some announcements and events, and as the event is going on, we'll place different announcements, as well as you can click here to access the event schedule. Here, if you were to favorite any jobs as you would be navigating the job board, you would be able to do that, and you will see what those jobs are. You can even create your own search. Once you created your own search, you would also see, you can essentially just click that and it would automatically search for whatever you indicated based off of certain filters and so forth. As well as favorite institutions. And so if there are any institutions that you wanted to follow, you would be able to do that too. And then at the bottom, you would see some recommended jobs based off of kind of what your interests may be. So let's actually start with the profile. So if you click here on edit profile, it'll go ahead and take you to essentially this edit profile page. And so up top, you'll see 2 buttons where it says view public profile or return to dashboard. If you click return to dashboard, it'll take you back to the page that we were just at. But if you click view public profile, think of it as kind of like a preview to what your page would look like. And so at the moment, this is what your page looks like with respect to your summary, some documents, your preferences, and things like that. But we'll go over those in a little bit more detail now. So I'm going to click back on edit profile here. So this very first kind of box at the top where it says profile search visibility, this is very important, especially if you want employers to be able to see that you are looking for jobs. And so if you are the person who's like, my profile is ready, I'm ready for employers to start some outreach, I'm ready to do some outreach to some employers, make sure that you click this to public. But if you are still in the space of like, I'm trying to get my profile together, I need to edit some things, things along those lines, we recommend that you put it on private. And so you would just click that box there and it would go to private. But note that once you put it on private, employers would not be able to like search for you. And so you got to remember to put it back on public should you want to be searchable by employers. So after you do everything that you need to do with your profile and you're ready to go, just make sure that that's put on public. And then down here at the bottom, you'll see general information. This is where you can indicate, again, your professional level, your year of experience. If there's a subtitle that you may want to include, you could do that as well. And then there's like the summary box here. It's up to you to choose how you would like to utilize the summary box, but consider it as a way for you to indicate what your interests are, give a brief blurb or like an elevator pitch as to who you are and your experiences and what you are looking for. And then down further, you'll see a section that says employment preferences. And so this allows you to indicate what your job interests are. So based off of different functional areas, and you can select more than one. If you know that you only want to live in certain parts of the country or the world, you can indicate the states that you are interested in living. Or if you're like, hey, I'm open to living everywhere, you could just say select all, and all of those states will populate. You can also indicate the institution category preference. And so thinking about, do you want to work at a 4-year institution? Do you want to work at a 2-year community college, things along those lines? And then similarly, you can indicate institution type. So public, private, for-profit, things along those lines. And then further down, you'll see a section where you can add various links to any type of social media accounts that you may have. And so you would take those links from those pages and put them in their respective box. Again, it's a personal preference or a choice that you may have for yourself. So you can decide to do that. And then here, this is the dreaded boxes that everyone hates when you have to, you're applying for a job and it's like, upload your resume, and then it still asks you to put all of your work history in the different boxes. Consider that this being that section here. And so you can go ahead and specify the position, the institution you're at, how long you were there, and you can give a brief description of what you did within the role. Some folks literally use it as an opportunity to do a copy and paste verbatim from their resume. Considering that this is a profile, I think that is okay. But again, your personal preference. And so you can continue to add work history, and you would click that there for however many jobs or opportunities you wanted to add. There's also a box for you to indicate your education, if you would like. And so the different schools that you went to and the degrees and field of study. And then if you were to have, let's say, any type of scholarly articles or anything that you may have written, you can add those here as well. And then finally, at the bottom, you'll see a spot for you to add supplemental documents. And so if you click underneath the type here and click this drop down, you'll see there's 3 different types of documents that you can add. You can add a resume, you can add a cover letter, or you can add a portfolio if that's something that you want to share. And so you would go ahead and click what the type is. You can indicate what the title of the file is, and then you can also indicate if you want to have it show on your profile or not. And if you wanted to add more, you would just click this little add button here to add another. One of the common questions that we often get from folks about adding documents is, well, what type of document should I add given that I'm applying for different jobs that may require different resumes and things along those lines? Consider this kind of like a generalist space. And so if you want to add a general resume that kind of gives an overall picture of the experiences and who you are, you can. If you want to add a cover letter, again, about what just general experiences and the type of work that you do, you can do that as well. But know that some institutions, and I would just say in general, it's good practice as you are reaching out to institutions to send materials that are specific to the job in which you are applying for. But this is just an opportunity for employers to get a picture of who you are. I'll pause right there to answer any questions. So after you've updated everything, you would just go ahead and click Save Profile. And then if you again wanted to view your profile just to see what it would look like, this is what you would see. So
we do have one question in the chat.
Yeah.
Sam wants to know, can I or should I add a reference list and unofficial transcript to the section? I think at the bottom where you talk about additional documents.
Good question. Again, I think that's personal preference. Again, the types that were listed there were resume, cover letter, or even portfolio. And so there wasn't necessarily a spot for you to add references, but you could note that in that section if that's something that you wanted to do. Again, I think it's a matter of personal preference, should that be something you want to add. Other questions? Good question.
Yeah, and one of the follow-up would be, could you please give an example of what would be included in a portfolio?
Good question. Yes. So for those of you all that may be in graduate programs, some of you have to do some sort of culminating project for you to obtain your degree. And so for when I was a graduate student, that actually was it actually was a portfolio. And so I had to have a record of various different papers that I wrote There was a website component that I had. It was various kind of reflections about my learning and things along those lines. And so it could be, your portfolio could be that. It could be a writing sample. It could be, I'm trying to think of some other things. I'm like, Caress, Denaja, what were some things that you all had to do for your graduate degrees?
I've known some people to upload, if they can anticipate that the institution might ask for a presentation, they have gone ahead and uploaded like a PowerPoint of a program or presentation that they've done that they're very proud of, because it already provides a sample of your work to an institution who may be looking for you as a candidate. But that's about the extent to which I've seen people upload additional materials beyond the resume and the cover letter.
Yep. Anything you want to add, Chris?
That was what I was going to add. And I was going to say, I always ask for the employer to ask me for my references, because then that gives me the ability to let my references know when they might be contacted. So I always like to know when that's going out. And so that's why I wouldn't add it just there. Just on your, I have a line on my resume that says references available on request, upon request, and that's perfectly okay to do. Just kind of your personal preference. And again, what you feel kind of most comfortable with, and what you think, depending on the type of job that you need, what shows that work the best. Because I think it all varies depending on your interest too.
Yep. Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Caress. Any other questions before I move on? All right, cool. So we're going to go back to our dashboard, but I'm going to show you another way you can go back to your dashboard, because there are multiple ways in which you can do so. So of course, there's the return to dashboard button here, which will be the most common button you would like press. But if you also look in this upper right-hand corner here too, you'll see the CS. If you click on that, it'll actually populate a different menu for you in terms of your account. Particularly, again, like the edit profile, your profile, and even if you wanted to start looking for jobs. So I'll just go ahead and click on dashboard. Oops, I clicked on edit, but we're gonna click on dashboard and it'll take you back to the dashboard page. So the next thing that we're gonna talk about is interview scheduling. And so now that TPE is almost here, interview scheduling has officially commenced. And so institutions can now start doing outreach to folks in terms of getting some things scheduled for the actual virtual event. So to actually view or edit your schedule, you'll click where it says view or edit schedule. And then it'll bring you to this page here. One thing that we want to make sure that everyone is aware of, TPE Virtual will be operating within Eastern Standard Time or Eastern Daylight Time. And so if you so happen to be outside of that time zone, you want to make sure you keep that in mind, because there's going to definitely be a time difference that you have to factor in as it relates to the different interviews and things that you have. And so we've asked all employers to schedule interviews within that, with respect to that time zone. And so if you're on the West Coast and an interviewer schedules an interview for let's say 1 o'clock p.m. EST, know that that is 10 a.m. your time. So just want you to keep that in mind as you all are getting things set up. So the way that interview scheduling works is that the employer is the one that has the capacity to place interviews on your schedule and not the other way around. You can reach out to employers expressing interest for a position that you may be looking at. And it's up to the institution to decide whether or not they are going to consider you for an interview or just their process. We do ask employers, though, for them to be in communication with you all consistently and openly about when they're scheduling an interview and things along those lines. And so if an employer just puts something on your calendar and you have had no communication with them, it is totally okay for you to reach out to them to let them know, to ask questions like, hey, can you tell me a little bit more about this? We didn't talk about this. I'm not interested. all of those different things. That is perfectly okay. But it is important that employers are being in open communication with you all about as you all are working to get interviews scheduled. So in terms of actually managing your schedule here, if you scroll down a little bit, right now you see that we're looking at it within the week view. So interviews will take place on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, Thursday, the week of TPE Virtual. And so interviews are coded by the color blue. And then anything else that's considered a personal event is coded by this like gray box. And so right now you'll see that this account has 2 interviews scheduled so far. If you click on the actual interview or the what's scheduled, this is how you can see information as it relates to the job itself. And so you'll be able to see the job details, the institution name, the time in which the interview is, and even the type of interview. So that's important to note as well. Some institutions may be conducting first round interviews during TPE Virtual. Some institutions probably did first rounds prior to TPE and are only doing second and beyond round interviews there, but they'll note what type of interview it is. And then interviews can last anywhere between usually 30 minutes to an hour. And so they'll also note that as well. And then because we are virtual, we are asking for institutions to indicate like the modality of the interview in the notes. And so that may include like a link to a Zoom, like a Zoom, or it may include like a phone number or that they may be calling from. It can include a variety of different things, but this is important for you to note here as well. And then there is the opportunity to export this event to any sort of personal kind of calendar that you may have. But it's not like a fancy kind of setup where it automatically updates like some of our other calendar like setups. And then if you need to delete an event, so this applies for both personal or for interviews, you can click delete here. And so, for example, if you were to get an interview scheduled by someone that you did not have communication with, you can go ahead and delete it. But I would also encourage you to reach out to them and say like, hey, I'm not interested in this. I went ahead and deleted this. Thank you for your time. Of course, say that in a nicer way, but that's the gist of that. So as I stated before, these gray boxes are what we like to call personal events. And so this is a way that you can add time on your schedule, let's say for a lunch or for a break or things along those lines. We recommend good practice for folks to put like break time in between before or after interviews, just to allow yourself time in case, let's say, an interview goes over, or you need to have some processing time to break, to just relax, or if you need to go to the bathroom, like all sorts of different things. And so recommend that you would put some time before and after interviews there. And so to do that, you can click up top where it says add personal event, and we're going to go ahead and add some break time actually right here before this interview here on Wednesday. So if you click add personal event, you can go ahead and title it whatever you want. So I'm going to say break. You would select the day, so that's Wednesday, and then you pick the time in which it's before. What time it is at. I think it was at 3:30. So then, no, it was at 3 o'clock. So 2:30, and then you select the end time. And then if you want to put any notes in there, you could do that. And then once you go ahead and get all of that set up, you click submit, and it'll say your event has been added. And then here you'll see now that there's time that's been added on the schedule. One thing to note is that as interviewers are working to get things scheduled on your calendar, they won't see specifically what this is. They'll just know that that time isn't available for you as they're working to identify a time that works best for you. So if it's already accounted for, they'll only see the times that you have listed on your calendar that's available. You'll even see at the bottom, we added a do not schedule interviews kind of section. And so let's say you're like, look, I'm only interviewing from 9 to 5 throughout the day, and after 6 o'clock, I'm done. That's totally okay. That's fine for you, right? And then again, that signals to employers that that time isn't available. However, let's say you're trying to find something to make it work. The only way for an employer to be able to add that time based off of what you may have blocked off is for you to actually remove that time from the calendar to then make that work. So, and then if you scroll down to the bottom, it actually has some just FAQs based off of the information I literally just said of like, how am I notified of an interview? And yes, as interviews are scheduled, you'll get an email from the system saying that an interview has been added to your schedule. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen right now and open it up for questions before I turn it over to Caress and Danaja to take the rest of this. Questions at all about interview scheduling? I think the one other thing that we would like to recommend is don't schedule all of the interviews in the world. There's only one job that you will have. Like, not that you won't get many offers, but just acknowledge that, like, you're human, you deserve rest, you deserve opportunities to recharge. And it's just not sustainable to do interviews back to back to back to back to back, especially when you know that if there's a certain type of school or position or whatnot you're interested in, just don't take interviews just to take them. Like, it's okay to say no. And I know you can get really excited about what opportunities to come, especially if you're waiting to hear back from institutions and things like that. And so just want to encourage you all to pace yourselves and to know what your negotiables are and what you are looking for within a role, and do your research and all of that jazz. So, all right, I'll turn it over to Caress and Danaja for the other portion of the session.
Thank you, Kirby. Again, so we're going to transition and talk a little bit about the job board and postings. But before we do, I think there was a question in the chat. How soon can we expect second round if first round interview is on day one? It really will vary. That's a good question. It really will vary by the institution. And so some institutions will do those interviews on the same day. It really, some institutions have multiple teams. Some institutions only have one person interviewing. And so that they will manage their schedule kind of based on kind of how many people they have available interviewing, and what that will look like. And so they should be really communicative about their timeline and like what their process looks like during TPE, but it will vary by institution. Want to see and then all interviewing completing, or does it run over? So again, so by that last day of the placement exchange, that will be the end of interviewing during our event. So institutions may continue their process, and more likely than not will continue additional rounds of their process, be it kind of what we call some institutions are doing virtual on campuses, but sometimes institutions will continue an additional schedule, but I would say the interviews that are facilitated through the virtual event are only for those 3 days. But yes, institutions will continue their process on beyond our event for these positions until they are filled. But yes, very good questions. Any other questions before we hop over to the job board? Yes, feel free to share it out verbally if you don't want to type it. Ashley, is that?
Yes, hi. Sorry, I jumped in a little late, so I don't know if this was already said. But when should we start expecting, or is that already started for the institutions to add things to our schedule or to reach out about adding to our schedule?
Yeah. So the scheduling just opened up, I would say recently. So you can expect them to start reaching out now, as they're starting to look at your profile, or as you start to correspond and reach out to them. As Kirby shared, so depending, I'm not sure when you kind of logged on, it's going to be very important for your profile on the TPE website to be public. So then employers know you're kind of ready and available, and kind of a viable candidate. And so that's another indicator. So as employers are looking at maybe searching for people maybe interested in a particular job category or years of experience, that's also how they pull and reach out to candidates. So really making sure your profile is public is another signal to employers, that you're interested and available.
Absolutely. And I would say, yeah, and this is one of the frequent questions we get to the candidate in the info email account. Can you reach out to employers if you are interested in the position? And the answer is yes. It really is a matching experience. To Chris's point, you have to assume that some people either are a one-person team or that a team is running multiple jobs. And there's an extensive list of candidates to read through and review. There is no harm in reaching out and sending, clicking the link to contact an employer to say, hey, I will be a TP. I have interest in your position, would love to be considered. That is a good way and an appropriate way to let an employer know that you would like to be on their radar, because they do have to initiate the scheduling of an interview. So letting them know that you're interested is another way to get on their radar so they can initiate scheduling an interview with you.
Any other questions about scheduling, your profiles? No, I think, Denaja, we are ready to hop over to the job board if you want to start to share that.
All right, are you all able to see the screen where it says search jobs?
Yes.
Perfect. And I will ask you to bear with me. I have a little one who lives at home and is enjoying watching Jeopardy, but I do hope that you can hear. So just want to take a minute to familiarize you with the job board. And it is a very standard, or I would say user-friendly job search process. And so once you log on, I've logged in as a TPE candidate, you can search at the beginning or at the top of the page for job searches. So you may not necessarily know if it's going to be a director or a coordinator position, but if you just put in Hall and hit search, that will start to give you a listing, and that lets you know that in this instance, there are already 224 jobs that are listed that are available. And so I would say the first thing to do, particularly if you're attending the virtual event, is to look for things that are either the premium event post, or once you go into the profile, which we'll do in just a second, you'll be able to know that they're interviewing at TPE. But if you want to get more specific, you can start to look at narrowing it down. Do you have to have a bachelor's or master's or doctoral level degree? If you know, depending on your life, what salary is your standard, it is okay to search by that. An employer won't know that you have used the feature, to search. But if you know that that's a factor, this is a place where you can consider that in narrowing down the positions that you may be interested in. You also have the opportunity to look at 2-year institutions for less than 2 year. You can choose by city, state, and by zip code, which I think is important. I just talked to a graduate class today around being honest about where you want to live. If you know that you need to be in an urban area, you know that you want to stay on the East Coast or stay in the Midwest or stay on the West Coast, start exploring your search by cities that are of interest to you, and then continue to spread that search out geographically if you would like. So for now, let's stick with Hall. It's very broad, but it's going to give us a lot of results to work with. So the first one that pops up is an opportunity at Loyola Marymount. When you click on view the job, there are a few things here that are worth noting. The position title, they've been transparent about salary range. a lot of conversations around logistics. You will find in this process that some employers are able to share, others are not. It depends on that institution's HR practices and what they're able to share. It lets you know if there's additional compensation. It tells you a little bit about the institution. So again, as you're doing your search, do you want a small campus? Do you want a medium-sized campus? Are you interested in working at a large state institution? That is some information that is available for you to know about that institution on their main page. The next section is really important. We give employers the opportunity to let you all know as candidates the policies that they have on the books for non-discrimination. That is very important for people to know what they can expect for the institutions that they're having conversations with around protections and expectations for employees and students on campus in that community. So again, you can see the qualifications on the left-hand side, and then you're able to begin to see the full position description. In this instance, it's been broken down into percentage, which gives you an idea. If it's a 40-hour work week, 20% of your time, 5 days in a week, you're talking about at least 7.5 to 8 hours a day in a week would be allocated to certain areas on this position. But I think what's most important, you can take a look at their information for where they stand on COVID currently, and then the application instructions. I think this is the most important piece. You will find that a lot of employers will detail what it is they are looking for you to be considered as an applicant. So you'll want to make note of, if I want to be considered, I need to submit a resume and a cover letter, and that should be done through their human resources office. So if you click on the link, it's going to take you, if you look down in the lower left-hand corner, to Loyola's website. That means that you have left the TPE website and gone to their institution's HR site to apply for the position. It also means that they have agreed to have communication with their HR to know where candidates stand in the application process as they think about scheduling interviews with you at TPE. So this is one unique piece about the position. Clicking that Apply Now button puts you in their formal application process, but that does not guarantee that an employer will reach out to you to schedule an interview with TPE. So to the statement I made earlier, if you know that it's a job that you intend to apply to, it is okay to go ahead and send communication to this employer and let them know, I've applied for the position and I'm interested in doing that. You let the employer know that by clicking the Contact Employer button at the top of the page. So you can do that once you know that you're interested in the position, but you should definitely do that if you're going to take the next step in applying for the position. And so Sam, I saw you put hall in quotes, and that's just a term that I use because, again, some positions are called hall director, positions are called community director, and usually somewhere a residence hall or residential hall is listed in the descriptor of the job. And so I use that word to be very broad to get our search to get started. Um, if you know that you're interested in working for a student services center, if you know that you're interested in advising, when you think about your keywords, you can choose academic advising, or you can go over to the right-hand side, and we have preloaded some categories. I think there are like 22 categories that are available for you to pick from. They're very vast, and we ask that employers identify their position in one or two of the, or one or more of those categories. So there's not a position, very few that are listed in others. I'll click on it for you to see it. But for the most part, we try to make sure that the jobs that are posted fit into one of the categories that we have provided. So some of these, if you were to search, they probably do fit in one of the categories and it's just been overlooked. But I think what is most important, which I'll go back to it again about the job board, I think the biggest question we get from candidates is, how do I make sure I've applied, and how do I make sure that I know an employer knows that I'm interested in the position? Make sure that you avail yourself to the contact employer link that's at the top of the page, and that you read very closely to whatever the instructions are for how you apply for the job. I think it's also nice that if that institution has other positions available, you're able to click the link that will take you to all the positions that are in their current repertoire. So again, say you know you want to go to Boston, and you're open to different positions at the university, clicking that link will let you see everything that's in their current inventory that they have posted to us. So we really do try to make the job board feature very user-friendly. I invite people to kind of just play around with the search function. Keywords can get tricky. So I would start by using some of the categories, particularly if you know an area of interest that you would like to work in. If you have had conversation with a friend or colleague and they have told you a direct title, search by that keyword, search by that institution. As you can see, we have looked up some very specific things on here in the past. But the two biggest features are making sure you know how to reach out to an employer for conversation, and make sure that you read the instructions very closely for how to apply for the positions that they have posted. So I've said that quickly because I really would like to leave more space for questions around this area, because again, we do a lot of troubleshooting when the inquiries come into the info and the candidate's account. So I'll pause and Chris, let you add anything if you would like, and then take questions if anyone has a question about how to use the job search feature.
Yeah, I would say while we're waiting for questions, I would say you really want to, again, look really in depth in the position description, because I think a lot of people really get stuck on titles, and there is more to the job than just the title. And so you might put in kind of your degree requirements, and you might see some titles you might be surprised of, right? That you might have heard, oh, how can I just have a master's degree or this many years of experience, and I'm seeing this title, right? And so really look at that job description, and really look at kind of the aspects of the role and the requirements, because as I'm talking to candidates, there's a lot of change in kind of how institutions are really explaining what they're looking for as it relates to experience. I see a lot more positions that are masters preferred versus masters required, and looking at like bachelor's degrees and years of experience as another way to complement this idea of a master's and years of experience. And so know that that is something that you shouldn't be shied away from or deter you from reaching out or applying to a role just because of the title. So really look into that description if it's something that aligns with your interests and aligns with your experience. A question in the chat: can an employer send you a message through the TPE website, or is there a messaging system that we can, that is a messaging system that we can access through the website? That's a great question.
So on the back end, we use a system that's called Mandrill, and it is simply a filtering system. So the messages do not live permanently in the TPE system. So when you click contact employer, they will get an email that says, in this instance, Logan has sent you a message. And so they will be able to click through the email and know that you've sent a message. They will be able to respond to you through whatever email you have provided on file. And so the system that we currently have is more of an alert that lets them know that a message is there. So it's not the capacity for like an instant messaging back and forth, but it's an email notification system. What I will say is, now that we have gone virtual, there are some vendors that we are looking at for starting in the fall to have some more interactive systems that work differently on a virtual platform. So right now it's just a messaging system that will alert you via email and the employer via email when messages have gone back and forth. Victoria, to your question, you asked, is the contact the employer listed the best person to address the cover letter to? Yes, if a position occasionally, and their instructions, it may say who is the contact person for a role. If they give you that information, you know that. What I can tell you is when an employer posts a job, they do have to give us a name and email address for a contact person, but it doesn't show that to the candidate. So it is appropriate to say to who it may concern, or to the search committee or search chair. I think there's no harm, and I have not experienced staffing some search committees. There's no judgment in the candidate saying, "Dear search committee," or to whom it may concern. So that is a helpful way to start if you don't see a posted. Sorry. Will employers be aware if you favorite the job post on the job board? No, that is your dashboard, and that is solely for your tracking. The converse of that is they are able to track their favorite employees or candidates for the same reason. They don't necessarily want to have to go through 244 candidates again. They want to come right to the pool that they have already gone through and reach out very quickly. So it is solely for your information only. Very good question.
Mm-hmm. All really great. Other questions? These are all really great. And I think, again, as you're going through this process, there might be additional questions you have, and that's okay. I think Again, we're here to help you. We'll have a lot more opportunities for you to reach out to us. Again, we'll have, and we'll talk about this a little later, other sessions where we'll engage with different content and different themes that will help you think about different connections or different points of your search. And so know that this is something that is a rolling process. And the timeline looks different for everyone. And so I think that's the great thing about the placement exchange. There's this virtual event, but that's the placement exchange, and the site and our resources are available year round because we know that this search process and the kind of career changes happen year round. And so know that this isn't just something we do for this time period right now. This is something, and these resources are available on a rolling basis. And so we are aware and we are here for you.
Appreciate the love, Victoria. The one thing, no, you're fine. The one thing that I will quickly say is if you did not receive, if you're a registered candidate and you did not receive email communication from us last week, please email info@theplacementexchange.org so that we can get a copy of the candidate kind of guide, the candidate guide to you. It answers some of the main questions and has some detailed instructions that you can have kind of with you while you're going through the site to remind of the things that Kirby has shared and the things that Caress and I have shared. So want to make sure that we get those materials to you. Thank you, Caress. If you are definitely interested in being a part of the placement exchange or have done that and we have somehow missed your information, so be sure to reach out. We can get that information to you. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead, Caress.
Nope, I was just going to again see if there were any lasting things about the site before we transition and talk about kind of additional resources and upcoming events. So I wanted to open the floor to see if there were any additional questions about the TPE site, process of getting ready for the virtual event, all of those things that we've kind of went over, wanting to see if there were any lingering questions. No. Okay. I think I have host abilities. So I'm going to share my screen and share with you all kind of as we kind of come to our end of time together, what's up next as we talk about candidate connections and other resources. So like I said, this timeline of your search and this virtual event is coming up within 2 weeks, but we know that this is a rolling process. So we want to make sure we're engaging with you all and sharing opportunities for you all to think about different aspects of your search process. And so I'm going to share my screen. We'll just move this one over. And so one of those things, oh no, not that, sorry. So one of the things that is particularly important for us is these candidate connections. And we know folks need a lot or different types of support. And so we've had sessions where we've had workshops that are open to those that need it, but also wanting to provide one-on-one candidate connection. So I know some folks may have seen employer opportunities. So there are candidate connections. And so if you're looking for one-on-one support before the virtual event, these are some times that are available. The tiny URL is at the bottom, and this is an opportunity for you to sign up for a one-on-one time with me, just to get, again, some of that personal one-on-one support before the event, be it kind of talking through your resume, your cover letter, maybe questions that you got from a candidate, or you're prepping for an interview process and you're kind of stuck. This is the opportunity for you to get that one-on-one support from me. And so, again, this is focused before the event because I'll talk a little bit about what are we offering during the virtual event. And so no, again, this is not something that's required, but something available to you all as you're prepping, knowing that sometimes individuals need more one-on-one attention. Again, during the virtual event, we'll have various sessions. And so before the virtual event, so now that you all are getting geared up, we'll be sending out particular newsletters focused on some of these sessions and resources particularly available for you all as candidates. And so before TPE Virtual, we'll be having a variety of workshops focused in on kind of questions to ask during your interview process, how to navigate no's, how to manage or work with different types of institutional sizes. We've worked and we're kind of focusing in on scheduling a variety of different presenters to talk about various points and I guess opportunities within our job search or career points that might be helpful for candidates. And these sessions will run, like I said, before the virtual event, kind of the same day. So you can kind of think about what might you want to kind of sit in on and get a little bit more support. So maybe you're struggling with figuring out what questions to ask in an interview, or maybe you're kind of figuring out, okay, so I've gotten all these offers and I don't know how to say no. So we'll have sessions kind of tailoring towards that. Another part of the TPE virtual experience is networking. And so not only having the opportunity to network with employers, network with other professionals within the field, networking with other candidates, right? And so we want to make sure that we're providing that opportunity because, again, it's not just what you know, it's who you know that will leverage and give you connections to maybe that opportunity that you're looking for. And so we will be having specific sessions and opportunities for candidates and employers to network together and for candidates just to network amongst that group. And so we really value not only within this event, but as a kind of profession, building up that network and making sure that we can foster those connections beyond just kind of seeking the opportunities just for a job. Institutional spotlights. And so we've worked to make sure that we're providing space for all of the institutions that are posting positions to have a time to talk about and highlight what some of their goals, their strategies, what's happening at their institutions. And so there'll be times where, and posted kind of before the event, where these institutions will be available to talk about what's happening at their current institution, what are some goals, particularly maybe what are some issues or themes around the positions that they're hiring for, and just giving candidates another opportunity to learn more about the institution. And then again, knowing that there's candidates that are needing different needs, there'll be virtual workroom and solution services. So we know there might be people who need last minute help in scheduling or getting things set up on their profile. And so know that that's available before the TPE virtual event. And so looking at most of these things will happen that Friday, the 11th. But know that there will be some other things that you can kind of connect with before that. During the virtual event, we'll have one-on-one coaching available as well. So every day that there's interviews, there will be one-on-one coaching or support that's available for candidates that you can kind of drop into to kind of get that support in between your interviews or kind of outside of your interview time. And so know that we have a variety of different professionals from different aspects of higher education and student affairs that have volunteered their time to be there to support candidates throughout the TPE experience. And so again, if you didn't want coaching or you're like, I don't know what I need before, but maybe it's like day 2 of interviewing and you feel a little stuck on how you may be communicating. So that's kind of what these coaches will be available for. Again, we'll have those virtual workroom and solution services to just navigate those things you need on the go. But we'll also have like those well-being and meditative spaces. And so in lieu of being in person, we know that it's going to be important to provide you all time and the ability to just kind of take a break, right? And recenter what you all need to as you're going through this process. So we'll be kind of having those virtual spaces available for you to hop into as you need them. And then again, networking. And so thinking about how are you having the opportunity to have some virtual FaceTime with other candidates or employers outside of your formal interviews so you can get to know people and kind of, again, get to know or maybe connect with folks that have similar interests job-wise or career-wise, as you're thinking about advancing in this profession. So those are a few things that we're offering during and before TPE Virtual specifically. And so that'll all happen that week, between that kind of right before the 14th and between the 14th and the 17th that the virtual event is happening. And then last but not least, our upcoming events this week after this session, we'll be doing Do You See Me Now? The Need for Narrative Sharing in the Recruiting Process and Interviewing Process. So this will be our TPE Talks, a part of that series. We'll be having kind of different professionals talking about their experiences in recruiting and interviewing, and just different identities and challenges or successes that they saw based on those things. And then Sunday, the 27th, we'll be hosting a session called Ace Your Aesthetic. And so thinking about, in this virtual space, what does it mean to dress professionally, right? And really redefining what that is, giving some tips and tricks, but also thinking about your virtual environment. How do you set that up to be what you need it to be in that moment for your interview? How do you make it feel and reflect who you are to be the most successful? And so that Ace Your Aesthetic is all about kind of how do you engage and tips and tricks on how do you communicate not only your needs, but also thinking about how you can kind of prepare for your needs in this virtual space. And so talking through that, providing space for candidates to kind of maybe share out concerns that they have going into this virtual experience. And so know that these are two kind of in real time events, but they will also be recorded that we have coming up within the next week to just talk about different points within the job search process. So I know I went over a lot of content, and so I'm going to stop sharing now and pop back into the group to see if there's questions. So like rapid fire. How do we add those events to our schedule? That's a great question. That should be a feature on the website. That could be really cool to think about. So adding those events, right now, you could go to our Instagram page, so at the Placement Exchange, and register. Those links, there's a link tree that's embedded, so you can register to those events. In regards to the different links and opportunities during and right before the virtual event, those will be shared out closer to the virtual event. And so as a candidate, you'll get those opportunities to register or the different links for those spaces closer to the event. So we kind of send that out in a specific newsletter and communication about that. Links go live March 2nd. Perfect. Good question. But it is something to think about for future. Other questions? No.
Well, I will say administratively, announcing that TPE was going virtually permanently is something that the committee and I are very much behind. And is also an adjustment for a lot of people who are familiar with the in-person experience. But what we have learned from COVID is that there are a lot of healthy things that come from people not having to think about how to afford travel to go across the country, to afford hotel for 3 or 4 nights. Right, you're going to navigate some yeses, you're going to navigate some nos, and how to be able to do that and still be around community that can support you, as opposed to feeling like you're a bit isolated at a 4-day interview experience. And so we are still excited, we are excited about this year's TPE and what it means for the candidates who are going to be spending time with us this year. The committee has worked hard on the sessions that will happen on that kind of Friday. I call it like a boot camp, but the goal is that we give you that content so that you have the weekend to really sit with it and marinate. as opposed to trying to hear sessions and then jump back into interview mode. We thought we would give you an educational day and give you some time to process through those things and then focus for the week. We really encourage you all to take advantage of the coaching. I just want to reiterate and affirm what Caressa said. You cannot anticipate how an interview will go, and sometimes it will shock you. It may go really well, and you're like, so what do I say in the next one? It's not always navigating disappointment. It's like, oh, I got to do this 2 more times or 3 more times. What do I say differently? What potential next set of questions could they ask? The candidate coaching will be a good space to do that with a seasoned professional in a one-on-one space. And then, of course, the mental health and well-being. Schedule downtime for yourself. I think Kirby said it, Chris said it, and I just want to reiterate 20 interviews, and 1 week will be a lot of interviews. So think strategically about the positions that you're interested in, the work that you would like to do, and schedule and accept interviews in ways that will protect your mental health and well-being so that you can show up as your best self in those interview spaces. And take Caress up on that one-on-one opportunity. Use that tiny URL. She's an amazing resource with a lot of experience and expertise. And I think would be able to help you tremendously if you take her up on that offer.
Yes, and so wanting to be mindful of time, and so if there's no other questions, thank you all for your attention. Great questions, great engagement. Best of luck as you all are preparing, and I hope you all are as excited as we are. It's going to be a great time, and we look forward to helping you all have the best process you can during the virtual event. So have a great night, and let us know how we can help you in this process.